I was so cold in my own apartment that I could see my breath while lying in bed. And when I begged my landlord to fix the heat, he actually laughed in my face and told me to just buy a space heater. That's when I decided, if he wanted a war, I'd give him one. He thought I was powerless, but he had no idea the chain of events I was about to set in motion. If you've ever dreamed of serving justice to someone who thought they were untouchable, hit that like button, subscribe, and buckle up, because this revenge story is going to give you chills in more ways than one. Grad school isn't glamorous. While some people imagine late-night debates over coffee and books, the truth is, it's exhausting. I was juggling a mountain of research, teaching assistant duties, and part-time shifts just to cover rent. My apartment was supposed to be the one safe place where I could collapse at the end of the day. But instead, it became a frozen prison. The building itself looked halfway decent from the outside. Red brick, ivy crawling up one wall, even a little iron gate that made it seem charming, until you actually stepped inside. The hallways smelled faintly of mold and stale smoke. The stairwell echoed with every footstep. The elevator made a noise so unsettling that I'd rather climb 5 flights of stairs than risk being trapped inside. But none of that compared to the cold. The first time I noticed the problem was in late November. I remember waking up at 2 a.m. shivering so violently my jaw hurt. I sat up and exhaled, and there it was, my own breath, fogging in the air like I was outside in the dead of winter. I piled on sweatshirts, socks, 2 blankets. Still, my toes felt like ice. By morning, I could barely bend my fingers enough to type my assignments. At first, I thought maybe it was just my unit. Maybe something small that could be fixed with a phone call. Oh, how naive I was. My landlord, Frank, was, let's just say, the human embodiment of indifference. Middle-aged, thinning hair slicked back with too much gel, always in a loud shirt like he was perpetually on vacation. He had this air about him, like tenants were just walking dollar signs, not human beings. When I called him the first time, I was polite. My voice even cracked a little because I felt guilty about bothering him. Hi, it's my name in Unit 5B. The heat isn't working properly. It's freezing in here. There was silence on the line. Then a chuckle. You're in grad school, right? Smart kid, like you should know how to buy a space heater. I gripped the phone tighter. But the lease says. He cut me off. Then sue me if you don't like it. Click. That was it. No apology. No maintenance request. Just pure arrogance. I sat there staring at my phone, heat radiating from my cheeks even while the room felt like an icebox. The way he laughed, it wasn't just dismissive. It was mocking, like he knew I couldn't touch him. I tried to tough it out. For a week, I layered clothes, studied in gloves, and even tried boiling water just to warm up my hands. Sleep was impossible. I'd wake up numb, my breath visible in the moonlight streaming through cracked windows. Every night, I had this internal battle. One voice said, "You can't fight him. He'll just evict you. You're broke, you're busy, you'll lose everything." But the other voice, the angrier one, whispered, "You're paying rent. You signed a lease. You deserve heat." The breaking point came one night around 3 a.m. I woke up to find condensation dripping down the inside of my windows, frost crawling along the glass. My laptop screen had a thin layer of moisture. My bones ached from shivering. I sat there in the dark, whispering, "This isn't living. This is survival." That's when I pulled out the lease. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages, not from cold this time, but from anticipation. And there it was. Landlord must provide heat in compliance with city minimum standards. I clenched the paper in my hands. "Got you," I whispered. The next morning, I didn't call Frank. I called the city's housing authority. The woman who answered had the tired tone of someone who dealt with nightmares like mine daily. I explained everything. She listened. Then she said the words that felt like fire in my veins. "Would you be available for an inspection this week?" Yes. Absolutely yes. When the inspector came, he didn't even need me to point things out. He stepped into my apartment, saw his breath, and muttered, "This isn't just bad. This is illegal." Then he surprised me. He started knocking on other doors. Tenants peeked out, some hesitant, some eager. And soon I realized I wasn't the only one suffering. One woman's windows were cracked and hadn't been fixed in months. An older man had mold climbing up his bathroom walls. A family with 2 kids had radiators colder than mine. By the time the inspector left, his notepad was full. He handed me a copy of the report, violations stacked page after page. Frank had 30 days to fix everything. For the first time in weeks, I felt warm. Not from the radiator, but from the heat of justice. I thought that was the end. But Frank, he wasn't done being stupid. A week later, I came home to find a folded paper shoved under my door. My stomach sank as I read it. Eviction notice. Tenant is causing trouble and disrupting building operations. I froze. My mind spiraled. Where would I go? How could I afford to move in the middle of the semester? For a moment, fear won. I sat on my bed, staring at the paper, fighting tears. But then I read it again, and something inside me snapped. He wasn't just ignoring the law. He was punishing me for standing up. That wasn't just wrong, it was illegal. I whispered to myself, "You picked the wrong tenant, Frank." The next day, I stormed into the housing authority with the eviction notice clutched in my frozen fingers. The woman at the desk scanned it, raised her eyebrows, and said, "Oh, he really messed up." She made a phone call right then and there. And this time, they weren't just sending one inspector. They were sending housing, fire safety, and building code enforcement. The following week, my building became a circus of inspectors. They poked at wiring, tested smoke alarms, examined stairwells, tapped walls, even checked for asbestos. What they found made my jaw drop. Exposed wiring, missing fire extinguishers, emergency exits that didn't lock properly. The mold problem was worse than anyone thought. The list of violations ballooned into something monstrous. And for Frank, his little empire was starting to crumble. When I walked into that office, all eyes were on me. Some whispered my name, others couldn't believe it. The same people who once mocked me now sat frozen, wondering how I ended up here. But the real moment came when I locked eyes with him, the ringleader of my torment. The man who once laughed at me, who once shoved me into lockers, who once told me I'd never be successful. Now, he was just another employee, and I was the one signing his paycheck. I'll never forget the look on his face, half shock, half rage. He tried to keep his pride intact, but I could see the fear underneath. When I called for a meeting, he tried to interrupt, acting like nothing had changed. But I cut him off. "Sit down," I said firmly. And for the first time in his life, he obeyed me. The meeting was short but powerful. I laid out my vision for the company, the changes I would make, and the standards I expected. Every word I spoke carried weight, because this wasn't just business, it was personal. And they all knew it. After the meeting, he approached me privately. He tried to act casual, even cocky. "Looks like you got lucky," he said with a smirk. But I just smiled back. Luck had nothing to do with it. Hard work did. I leaned in closer and whispered, "And now you work for me." That was the moment it truly hit him. The tables had turned. The power dynamic was reversed. And nothing he said or did could change that. After that day, something inside me shifted. For years, I had carried the weight of humiliation, the echoes of laughter, the sting of insults, the loneliness of being treated like an outcast. I thought that owning the company would erase the pain completely. But the truth? Revenge doesn't erase the scars. It just proves you survived them. Every morning, as I sat in my office overlooking the city, I remembered the boy I once was. The kid who walked home alone, who stayed up at night wondering if life would ever get better. If only he could see me now. And here's the irony. The same people who once ignored me now rushed to please me. They laughed at my jokes, complimented my ideas, and treated me with respect. But deep down, I knew their respect wasn't real. It was fear. One afternoon, I was reviewing files when I heard a knock on my door. It was him, the ringleader. But this time there was no smirk, no arrogance, just desperation. He confessed that life hadn't turned out the way he planned. He admitted he envied me. And then, the words I never thought I'd hear spilled out of his mouth. I'm sorry for everything. For a moment, I didn't know how to respond. I had dreamed of this moment for years, him begging for forgiveness. But when it finally happened, I didn't feel triumph. I felt peace, because in that moment, I realized something powerful. My success wasn't about proving him wrong. It was about proving myself right. So I looked him in the eye and said, I don't need your apology. I already won. And just like that, I let go of the past. That night, after the office was quiet and everyone had gone home, I stayed behind. I walked through the empty halls. The same halls where they once whispered about me, mocked me, made me feel invisible. Now my footsteps echoed with power. But more than that, they echoed with freedom. I stood in front of the glass window, staring out at the city lights, and it hit me. Revenge wasn't about humiliating them. It wasn't about making them bow to me. It was about reclaiming the dignity they tried to take away. And I had done that. The truth is, life will always have people who try to drag you down. People who laugh at your dreams, call you names, and hope you fail. But here's what they don't realize. Every insult, every setback, every moment of doubt becomes fuel. Fuel to keep going. Fuel to rise higher. Fuel to build a life so big, so powerful, that one day, just like me, you'll look back and smile. Because success is the loudest revenge of all. So to anyone out there who feels like a nobody right now, remember this. One day, the same people who laughed at you will watch you succeed. And when that day comes, you won't even need their approval. Because you'll know you were somebody all along.